What's going on, good people? We're gonna get ready to get started in just a few minutes, and we have a jam-packed show tonight on Titans and Truth. Got a big announcement coming up in just a moment that we're going to discuss with you. As you can see on the screen, got two very illustrious special guests. We have the very recent 2020 Tennessee Sportswriter Hall of Fame inductee. She was just inducted into that Hall of Fame officially a couple of weeks ago in Nashville. She's a 2020 Hall of Famer, and so was able to get inducted officially live with her family and friends a few weeks ago. Miss Teresa Walker from the Associated Press. And of course, she's coming back to the show along with my guy, Mr. Bowtie Swag himself. My guy, TD Turron Davenport from ESPN will be coming in for a little bit as well as we get ready to talk. We're going to talk a little training camp. We're going to talk quarterback and wide receiver top 10 list and just have a little small media forum. So get ready, y'all. It's time for some action. Let's get it on. Titans of Truth, starting now. Good evening, Titan Nation. How is everybody? Good evening, Titan Nation. How's everybody doing? Welcome into a very special edition of Titans and Truth. I'm your man, Chris, aka Blue Enforcer, and we are in for a star-studded episode tonight. Before we get started, make sure y'all share the show out. Y'all know on Facebook, it is on the TNT Enforcers page right now. Share that out to all of the Titan pages if you can. Also on Instagram, at Titans_N_Truth. Go follow me there, as I will definitely be doing everything I can to update that page as much as possible. On Twitter, at TNT Blue Enforcer as well. You can also watch on there, and it'll take you right to the YouTube channel. And so without further ado, let's get this thing kicked off right away, as we have some very, very special guests joining the show. First off, as I stated before, she is a 2020 Tennessee Sportswriter Hall of Fame inductee. And, finally, after the pandemic has kind of slowed down, she was finally able to get officially inducted in person into the Tennessee Sportswriter Hall of Fame. We have the very illustrious, the one and only Miss Teresa Walker. Miss Teresa, how are you doing this evening?
I am doing really good. I hope you are, because let's just put it this way. If you can kind of see it over my shoulder, that's the Hall of Fame plaque. So this past week has been a very good week for me, that's for sure. A year delayed, but no less appreciated.
Absolutely. And, because I looked at our text message when we were talking, I said, oh, my goodness, I was supposed to about a week or two ago. So, yes, a little late, but not too far behind. So just glad. I'm just happy to have a Hall of Famer on the show with me. So it is an honor and a privilege as always to have you. And of course, we have my guy, Mr. Bowtie Swag. I get my swag advice on how to look good from this man. And he is, of course, enjoying himself out and about a little bit, but giving us a few moments of his time, the one and only Mr. TD Turron Davenport from ESPN. TD, you're out and about, so I think you're having a good old time in Cashville.
Yeah, man, I'm out and about. I just got done talking to Keith Fulton for a post that I have going up this week on the trenches. That Keith is Christian's younger brother, the Titans DB. So just I'm actually in the parking lot in my car now talking to you.
Yeah, and because I know he has his new spot. Christian Fulton has his new spot that's opened up, and I bet it is getting good business. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, the business is thriving for them. So it's great to see. I always like to, check out the local spots like that. I definitely have gotten some things from there. And yeah, Teresa, you'll be seeing it during the year. You know how we check out the outfits.
Without a doubt. And I'll say this, TD is easily the best dressed among the Titans media corps, without a doubt. He brings the swag, the coordination, and the shoe collection. I tell you, I can't match what he's got, for choices to put on those feet.
Hey,
well, thank you.
Hey, I tell me and TD talk about this from time to time. He's what I want to be when I grow up. I want to be able to have that. And it's funny, before we do get into the show, I was just at a suit store a few weeks ago, and my wife and I, we were shopping. I was looking for, I think I bought 2 new suits, if I'm not mistaken. I know I got one. And so I went over, I looked at the ties, and I was thinking, okay, I want to find me a nice, good-looking bow tie. And the first thing I thought about was TD. I'm thinking, let me see if I can find my swag. But I really couldn't find one that just said me in taste. And I like paisley, and I think I saw the one that was kind of in red and black paisley, and I almost bought it, but I wasn't sure, and I was, in a little rush for time. So I may go back and get that particular tie, that paisley. I do like the paisley, and I like the red and black combination, so I might just do that. So, I lean on TD when it comes to bow tie game.
Absolutely. Blue and white, man. You should have said that's the combo that you want, because, Phi Beta Sigma.
Hey, I got a couple of blue and white ties already, but I like to do I like a couple of other combinations, but absolutely, I always put the blue and white on all the time, so that is nothing new. But thank you both for being on with me. I appreciate that very much. And we get into some of the news that's been happening. First off, we hear this today that, first off, a station here in Memphis, 98.9, the Roar of Memphis, is now the home here in Memphis for Tennessee Titan football games. I believe Mike Keefe was here with the station there. So congrats to 98.9 as they join the Tennessee Titan radio network. And also, congratulations to former Oiler head coach Bum Phillips, as well as Jeff Fisher, and also former GM, the GM of Jared and the GM formerly, the one and only Floyd Reese, as they will be enshrined in the Tennessee Titans Ring of Honor at some point this season. So wanted to get both of your thoughts, Ms. Teresa, you first, with the Ring of Honor inductee announcements.
I'll say this, it's about time for Bum Phillips. I became a fan of this franchise in the 70s, watching Bum Phillips teams with Earl Campbell, Dan Pastorini. And, think about this. That franchise had 8 straight losing seasons. Bum Phillips gets promoted from a position coach. He takes over as head coach. And in the first 2 years, he put together, I think it was a 608 winning percentage. So talk about turning things around. Now, yes, getting some guy like Earl Campbell certainly helped. But, I love, think about it. He wore the big, sheepskin kind of coat. He had that cowboy hat outside, wouldn't wear it in the Astrodome because, his mama taught him you don't wear a cowboy, hat in the house. And, and then, he never did get a chance to kick that door in. But, love you, Blue, man. If you paid any attention to the NFL in the 70s, they had so much. It was fun to watch those teams. And then Jeff Fisher, the man oversaw, 4 different homes in 4 different years. They were lame ducks in Houston in 96. They were lame ducks in Memphis in 97. There was one game against the Ravens where you could hear the fans at the Mid-South Fair having more fun than the people inside the Liberty Bowl. And
Wow.
Players talked about how they could hear the fans talking amongst themselves while they're playing games. Then they go to Vandy in 98, and then in 99, they finally get a new name, a new stadium, and boom, he takes them to their only Super Bowl berth. He's the only coach to win at least 13 games with this franchise, and he did it 3 different times. And then, Floyd Reese, he was the guy who went from a position coach and ends up being the GM. He hired Jeff Fisher. He drafted Steve McNair, Eddie George, Javon Curse at a time when people were, it's like he's a tweener. He can't rush the passer, and all he does is go out and set the rookie sack record, which still stands. And then it was just fun to watch what they did together. So it's appropriate that it's finally happening. And Bum Phillips will be inducted on September 26th in the game against the Colts. We'll have to wait for the date for the other two, but it's about time.
Yeah, absolutely. TD, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, there's not really much that could be added to that thorough rundown of each of the guys. I think it's really cool to see the architect and executioner together going in, and Floyd Reese and Jeff Fisher, and that's more. What I know of, I do know of Bum Phillips and some of the things that they've done is a little before my time, but just the fact that he turned everything around was really significant. And I think the key for that is it ties this organization back to those older years, which is something, to the Oiler years, which is something that's very significant. And next year we'll see an even further tie because, they'll be wearing those Love You Blue type uniforms. So I'm looking forward to seeing that as well. But I mean, it's great. And I've interacted with Coach Fisher and Floyd Reese. I have a solid relationship with both of them. So I'm happy to see them go in. And it's just something that, is really good for the organization.
Yes, indeed. And I definitely will agree with that. And I welcome everybody in that's tuning in. I see AZ Big. It says, hello, TD. We got Sean. We got Ireland in the building. We got the Irish with us tonight. Jameson saying he became a fan during the Music City Miracle. I think a lot of people did. And, it's definitely, that was probably one of the defining moments for this franchise that really put us on the map and had us going forward. So I definitely agree. And I remember those times in Memphis. I think I was in high school and, I really couldn't have the money to go to the games, but definitely was listening. And it's just, anybody will tell you down here in Memphis, it is very difficult being a Titans fan because you got to battle against the Cowboys and the Steelers all the time because those are like the two big fan bases in this city without a doubt. And of course we get the myth and the legend of H-Town in Houston, Texas. We got our own Ken Moore. I know he knows some Oiler history. Ken, welcome in also as well. What were your thoughts about the Ring of Honor inductees?
First of all, I just want to give a shout out to Teresa and TD. Great to be on with you guys. I've seen you guys from afar, so great to be on the show with you guys. First and foremost, means a lot down here, especially for Bum Phillips. I was around in the 70s and 80s. I grew up in the Astrodome with the Oilers and Love You Blue and Earl Campbell and those great teams of Love You Blue. And Bum Phillips really is what turned around football in the city of Houston, that really put the Houston Oilers on the map during the 70s. And he just brought that real old country style of coaching football. He wasn't a big X's and O's guy. It was Earl Campbell left, Earl Campbell right, and then maybe a little play action with Dan Pastorini, kind of what we see with the Titans right now. But Bum Phillips was a great guy. His daughter Susan is very, very, very much on social media, hearing a lot of Houston Oiler groups on Facebook and on Instagram. So she's still very much involved. And, it's just great to see the Titans recognize Bum because they can't do it at NRG Stadium with the Texans because they don't own that history. So a lot of times the fans in Houston, they have to wait on the Titans to acknowledge those old Oiler players and coaches. And it's just a great thing that they decided to do that.
I definitely agree. And I didn't really know a lot about Bum Phillips. And back then I know about the cowboy hat and definitely Love Your Blue, especially during the time with Earl Campbell. And I still remember that run against the Rams where, Earl Campbell just tore the LA Rams apart, ripped his jersey off, and he still keeps running. And it's like a bulldozer. And back then they were making business decisions, but in today's NFL with Derrick Henry, you're definitely making a business decision when it comes to that. But Jeff Fisher, Floyd Reese, of course, I've talked to Floyd on with Jared very often, so I know somewhere Jared is probably quite proud with Floyd Reese getting his Ring of Honor induction. But also what went on this past week, of course, there was a couple of ESPN lists that came out with the NFL talking about the top 10 quarterbacks and top 10 wide receivers going into 2021. And we first talk about the quarterbacks, and obviously what you have on the list, you have your usual Patrick Mahomes at number one. I mean, no shock there at all. You got Aaron Rodgers at 2, which we don't know what's going to happen with Green Bay, which I think he's still going to be in Green Bay. Russell Wilson at 3, which there's also some speculation going on with him. 4, Tom Brady, golden boy. I'm sorry. Y'all know how I feel about that. 5, Josh Allen. 6, Deshaun Watson, but we don't know if he's going to play this year. 7, Dak Prescott. We'll see how he comes back from that injury. 8, Lamar Jackson. 9, Justin Herbert. And 10, Kyler Murray. And I'm pretty sure a lot of Titan fans notice there's a certain quarterback left off of the top 10 by the name of one Ryan Tannehill, not in the top 10. So my question to everybody in the panel, and TD, I'll start with you first. Should Tannehill have been in the top 10?
I think there can be strong consideration for him being there, absolutely. And for me, and I'll drop something a little different on here. I think he's a better quarterback than Josh Allen, because for me, with Josh Allen, he did it for 1 year, right? Tannehill has been successful and done an excellent job for 2. And I just think Josh Allen is a guy that will turn the football over, and I don't know that you could trust him to last a full season because of the style of play that he brings. So from that perspective, I will put him in the top 10.
I definitely agree. Me personally, and Ken, Teresa, I'm going to get to you in a second. Me personally, if it's me, I might do a little switching. Kyler Murray, I still think Kyler Murray has a little bit more to prove. So I honestly would put Ryan Tannehill ahead of Herbert and Kyler Murray on this list. Maybe do a little shuffling around. I maybe perhaps put Deshaun Watson ahead of Josh Allen a little bit on this list. But I do think Tannehill should have been on this list because he's a top 10 quarterback, in my opinion, very consistent. Ms. Teresa, I'm going to let you chime on in.
Well, I'll say this. I agree with TD about Josh Allen, but Justin Herbert, it's like, yes, he had a great season, but it was a rookie season. I want to see how he does after defensive coordinators have had an offseason to look at him, see his strengths, and what they can do to maybe scheme against him. But it also feels to me that there's still people looking at Ryan Tannehill saying, well, he's benefiting from Derrick Henry. Now, those of us who cover the team understand that it became easier for Derrick Henry to find running room once he got a quarterback in Ryan Tannehill. His ability to throw the ball gives them chances and gives him more space to run, making him more effective. That's why he's led the NFL in rushing the last 2 years. And it just feels like, for some people, Ryan Tannehill, it's like 33 career high touchdown passes this last season, and he ran for 7 more. He ran the offense that was tied for second in the league in yards per game and the 4th highest scoring offense. To me, the numbers are there, but having covered this team for the entirety of its time in Tennessee, I'm not surprised. This team and players on it have to do something very incredible year in, year out to get that kind of respect or at least attention nationally. I don't understand it. I'm writing about him. TD's writing about him. You should be able to understand what's going on, but Dak Prescott even. I mean, coming off the ankle, I'm going to need to see him get back to what he was to believe that he should be on that list.
Absolutely. I see where you're going with that. Ken, hop on in here, Ken.
Yeah, I definitely think Tannehill should have been around that 9-10 mark. I agree as well. Dak Prescott coming off a severe ankle injury. That's a team that was 1-3 or 1-4 when he went out. Their offense was really struggling last year. And Kyler Murray, has he been to the playoffs yet? No, he has not. So how do you get into the top 10 if your team has not been into the playoffs? Lamar Jackson, great talent at the quarterback position, but has he proven that he can throw the football and help a team win without his legs? I don't know if he should be as high as he's ranked. So I think Tannehill should be around that 9-10 mark. I think Baker Mayfield, as much as people criticize him, he had a great year last year. He's got a very good offensive coach. That's their head coach now. So I would expect him to continue to improve as long as he keeps his head on straight. But I think Tannehill and Baker Mayfield both should have got some consideration around that 9-10 mark.
Yeah, and
I have to interject here. I have to interject, and I understand that the general consensus is that Lamar is a running quarterback, but let's not forget, just a couple years ago, he led the league with 37 touchdown passes, and he was an MVP. I'm not going to sit here and say Lamar should not be in the top 5 at the very least. I can't go with that one.
Yeah, I believe he's a top 10 quarterback. I just don't think he should be ranked as high as he is on this list. Just my personal opinion.
And I'll say this. I think out of all of the quarterbacks in the top 5, and I'm going to throw the list back up again, out of all the quarterbacks in the top 5, I will probably say, and I think we can all agree, Josh Allen is probably the one that needs to be moved away from that top 5. And I mean, yeah, and now I'm gonna have to kind of side with Ken on this one. Lamar Jackson, yes, definitely top 10. I think he's right outside of the top 5 because I think really for what Deshaun Watson has been, I would put him ahead of Josh Allen. And Lamar Jackson, I would put him ahead of Dak Prescott. I definitely put ahead of Dak Prescott, without a doubt. I think Lamar is right there at 6, in my opinion. So that's how I would do it. I would say 5 would be Deshaun, 6 is Lamar, 7 is Josh Allen. It definitely, in my opinion. And with Miss Teresa, I am absolutely agreeing with her. Justin Herbert and Kyler Murray, I just don't think have shown enough just yet. I mean, Kyler Murray, he's a product of that offense with Kingsbury out there. And I mean, it does help that you have Duke Hopkins out there as well. That definitely will help you in regards to that. So this could, again, in transition into Tannehill, now that he's going to have Julio on one side, AJ on the other side, that is tremendously going to help him. And the question is, after this season, what are people going to say outside of the Titans network? Is it that, Tannehill really is a top 10 quarterback? Or is it, oh no, Tannehill is only a product of the 2 wide receivers on the outside and that big beast king that's behind him? So that's really the question. I think a lot of other national media that don't know the team like all of us do will ask that question. That's just what I'm thinking. But I definitely think Tannehill should be on the list, without a doubt in my mind. So, and I see some comments coming in. I know some others said at worst 6. Definitely some say 7. I know I saw somebody saying that he should be in the top 5 with that. And, of course, James is saying it's disrespectful that they left him off the list. And Titans Mafia said top 5. Ian saying the heavy hitters. We got some heavy hitters definitely today with TD, Ken, and Miss Teresa. We got some legends in the building. So I definitely like the sound of that. But now, and then Philip comes in and saying the problem with holding Tannehill 2 70-yard playoff games last year, and the dud against the Ravens in the playoffs last year is why Tannehill is not getting any respect. And I mean, the playoff games probably do have a little something to do with it, but that was more Derrick Henry, and I think a lot of people want to see it where Tannehill takes the game over in the playoffs. But I'm thinking this way, and y'all can chime in and agree or disagree. When you got Derrick Henry back there, Tannehill doesn't really have to do much to win a ball game. Just don't make the mistakes.
Well, we didn't see Tannehill make many mistakes last season, and let's not forget despite an offensive line that went through 3 different left tackles, he still
Mm-hmm.
managed to. He was only sacked 25 times last year.
Yep.
So you get Taylor Lewan back. We'll see what happens at the right tackle situation.
Yep.
TD was all over the great season that Nate Davis had last year in his
Yes.
second season, and watching his videos and pictures from his working out with Roger Saffold this year, I'm looking forward to seeing what this line can do to build off of last season. And hey, guess what? The only thing I'll say this. I may sound a little, maybe I've been around Derrick Henry, Tannehill, and these guys a little too long, but what people think outside and what their stats are, they have one goal. And ever since they got Julio Jones, it's to find a way to be playing in Los Angeles on February 13th. And that's the only thing that they'll care about. I know it's the quiet time. Camp's 2 weeks away. So we need these lists right now to have some chatter, but that's the only list that's going to truly matter.
Agreed. I absolutely agree. Anybody else got anything to add? And then we're going to go into the receivers.
Well, I think another thing that I kind of agree with the last comment, the reason why Tannehill is not getting respect is because of the performances in the playoffs. Now, of course, against New England and Baltimore, we were running the ball, didn't need to throw the ball. But with the shortcomings against Kansas City in the championship game, last year against Baltimore in the home playoff game, until Tannehill has a signature playoff game where he can throw for 280 yards and 3 touchdowns and no interceptions and lead the Titans to a victory, he's not going to get the kind of love that we want him to receive. And then also with Arthur Smith leaving, a lot of people are expecting Tannehill to regress without Arthur Smith.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be incumbent upon him to go out and the new offensive coordinator and to keep this offense rolling in 2021 the same way it has been the last 2 seasons under Arthur Smith.
Agreed. And Todd Downing is going to be the big wild card in all of this. If Todd Downing has been given the keys to some pretty nice vehicles right now, I mean, I would say it like this. Ryan Tannehill is like a Mercedes-Benz. Just drive and just drive and enjoy the road. Then you got a tank Ferrari in Derrick Henry, and then you got a Ferrari in Derrick Henry. Then you got a Lambo. You got a Lambo in Julio Jones, and then you got a Bugatti with AJ Brown. You got some pretty nice keys. If Todd Downing just takes care of those keys, Titans might just be playing in LA twice this season instead of just once. And February 13th will be the main date to be in LA. Absolutely. But in switching gears a little bit, the other position that I know is near and dear to TD's heart, the wide receiver list also came out yesterday. And, in great sense, 2 Titans make the list. Julio and AJ are in the top 10 list of wide receivers. And I don't know, for some reason I didn't have the list up. I thought I had the list up, but basically this was the list that we had as far as the wide receivers are concerned. At AJ Brown comes in at number 10. At 9, you got DK Metcalf. At 8, you got Michael Thomas. At 7, you got Mike Evans. At 6, you got Keenan Allen. Then at number 5, our new toy, Julio Jones. And 4, Tyreek Hill. 3, Stephon Diggs. DeAndre Hopkins at 2. And then at 1 is Devontae Adams on that list. So my question for everybody, TD, I'm going to go with you first. Is it a shock or a surprise or a good thing that we got 2 guys on the list? We knew Julio was going to be on the list, but surprised if anything that AJ Brown make the list at number 10?
No, I'm not surprised at all. And I actually talked to Jeremy Fowler earlier today, and he said that there was a tiebreaker between Calvin Ridley and AJ Brown, and a lot of the execs that he talked to, they sided with AJ Brown because they like the physicality that he brings to the game. And that's something that I've said since before he was drafted, just as far as the yards after the catch that he brings. And in my opinion, he's the best yards after the catch receiver in the league. So when you look at just the way he's able to run through the ball as opposed to slowing down to catch it, it allows him to accelerate. And then once he gets the ball in his hands, he's able to break tackles. And he is one of those guys where DBs are like, man, I'm not trying to do this all day, tackling that, man. And it's something that I think is just a really big part of the passing game, that play action and hitting him across the middle. So, no, I'm not surprised at all that A.J. Brown is in the top 10. I think with a little bit more polish, just as far as route running is concerned and as far as being a bit more consistent catching the football and just with his releases and creating separation, I think he could be a top 5 receiver. He's not there now, but you finally have 2 receivers on the Titans. I mean, they haven't had a receiver duo be in 1,000-yard range since 2004 when Derek Mason and Drew Bennett, when they did it together. So you're getting a good shot at seeing that this year. That's going to be exciting to follow. And just the way that they're going to be able to play off of each other, whereas you really can't you can't double team both of them, right? And even if you want to go in cat coverage and have your best DB go on against what you consider the best receiver, well, then there's going to be another guy on the opposite side that's going to be able to eat. And the top 10 list for DBs, the Patriots were the only team that had 2 top 10 lists, 2 guys on there, right? And L.C. Jackson and Stephon Gilmore. So I'm looking forward to seeing that matchup too.
That is going to be a fun matchup. And I definitely agree with that. And I mean, I know a lot of people probably look back to the Patriots versus the Titans 34-10, thinking, well, Corey Davis torched Stephon Gilmore. That, yes, we did well that game, but everybody, let's not be misconstrued. And TD and Teresa and Ken can tell you, Stephon Gilmore is a very, very good corner in this league, one of the best ones in this league. Why do you think, he was in the Defensive Player of the Year conversation for the last 2 years? So, I mean, Stephon Gilmore and then Jackson on the other side, that is a pretty good duo. To get together on that. So, Ken, let me get your thoughts on that real quick.
Man, my first thought is that it's going to be a heck of a game. Week 1, you got D-Hop, you got Julio Jones, and A.J. Brown all on the field on the same afternoon. So you get to see 3 of the top 10 right there. I am surprised that Julio made the top 5 after all the Julio slander that was going on after the trade, talking about how he's been hurt the last couple of years or whatnot, which he only was hurt last year. So I was kind of surprised to see Julio in the top 5, pleasantly surprised. I am glad AJ made the top 10. Personally, I think AJ is slightly better than DK Metcalf, but those guys are probably the 2 best up-and-coming young receivers right now. So happy to see them both get in the top 10.
Absolutely. And I was conflicted. When I saw that, I was a little bit conflicted, wondering if I would put AJ ahead of DK a little bit. I was a tad conflicted on that because I just think they're both, just looking great right now. So, I mean, you really can't go wrong with either one at either position on that. Ms. Teresa, I'm going to let you jump in for a moment.
I'd put AJ a little bit ahead of DK for this reason. Let's not forget, he had a Pro Bowl season in his second year, and he could have gone on IR after the season opener with the knee injury. Remember the pictures he tweeted out? He had surgery on not one but both knees at the end of the season, right? And he still put together a Pro Bowl season. That's why, as TD mentioned, he does have some areas to improve and sharpen his game, and the Titans have been talking to him about what more they want to see out of his game. There's room for improvement. And, if he's healthy for a whole year, can you imagine what he can do with 2 good knees? That's all I'm saying.
Absolutely. I could not agree more. And, we'll get more back into the list in just a bit. I want to get TD's thoughts. We're going to talk a little training camp as well. As we know, training camp is 2 weeks away. And my God, TD, I know he's got to hop off in just a bit. So, TD, I want to ask you about training camp. I think a couple of really anticipated battles in my mind are at right tackle, are the last couple of positions at wide receiver, and also the backup quarterback position. What are your most anticipated spots on the line going into training camp?
Yeah, well, I think the kicking position is something that has to be mentioned as well. Blake Harbor out of Ohio State. I want to see if he's able to bring that success he had there in college, hitting 146 out of 146 extra point attempts and hitting 55 yarders, 49 yarders. I want to see, can he bring that to the Titans and win the competition over Tucker McCann? Because whoever ends up getting that job, they're going to have a lot of pressure on them to perform, and they're going to have the potential to have a key role. So I want to see that. Obviously, the backup quarterback competition, that's something I've been talking about for months now that I really wanted to see with Deshaun Kaiser. And there's a lot of things that we don't know, that aren't known as far as that went into him not being the quarterback that he should have been in Cleveland. I know different details that, no quarterback would be able to develop in that situation. So I'm glad that he's getting an opportunity to play. I want to see him, in a competent offense with a coach that I think can definitely allow things to work smoothly for him. So, obviously that. I want to see how the slot receiver thing goes, too. I mean, right now, they don't have a guy that's a dedicated slot receiver as far as in their top four. Mason Kinsey, I think, can fill that role as an Adam Humphries type. But I want to see how they go about attacking that position. Are they going to use it with just size? Because you obviously have Reynolds, Brown, and Julio Jones. And the good thing about those three is, as we talked about earlier, when you try to get into that cat coverage and take a DB and move him with the receiver, then it makes it a little difficult because you have guys that you can move all over the formation, whereas they could play X, Z, as well as the slot. So that's something else I'll be watching. I think the nickel corner spot is something to look at. Christian Fulton is definitely a guy to consider for that. And what I've heard is they would really like him to get that right corner spot position as well. And obviously that means competition with Caleb Farley, who apparently seems to be ready to go. But then you mix in Elijah Molden and what he brings and just how he could give them a 3 safety look as a nickel DB that could play the safety position. I'm looking forward to seeing all of that.
Definitely, I definitely agree with that. And TD, I know you got to hop off and everything, and I appreciate you being on with us. Definitely enjoy the rest of your evening and everything. We're gonna be definitely talking. Y'all make sure y'all check out TD. I know he came out with a podcast, came out with an episode. Y'all check out Talking with TD on Spotify, iTunes, wherever you get your podcast. You can check him out on 102.5 The Game on Monday, Thursday, and Friday. Definitely make sure y'all tune in for TD's Power Hour tomorrow afternoon on Stillman and Company as well. TD, as always, man, I appreciate you once again, and I thank you so much.
Well, yeah, I appreciate it. And let's not forget my primary employer, ESPN. You can check my workout on ESPN.com. Yeah. That's where you see most of it.
Hey, TD, I have one question for TD before you go. Do you anticipate us adding any other tight ends behind Fursker at that spot, or do you expect them to just go into camp with what they have right now?
I think they're going to go into camp with what they have. And here's a guy to watch out for, Briley Moore out of Kansas State. He's someone that could work that H-back kind of position that you saw Jonnu Smith do, where they bring him across the formation. He kicks out the end and they run stretch off of that, those kind of things. So I think he's a guy that they have a lot of confidence in. And then you got his name slipped my mind. Jared Pinkney out of Vandy. He's another player that I think could be in the mix.
Yeah. And I also the Alabama tight end, I believe Forstall, I believe is his name as well, possibly in the battles as well with that. But TD, as always, man, I thank you once again. Y'all make sure y'all check out his work on ESPN. The man is cranking out great content and great articles as usual. And he still has his bow tie game on lock. So, TD, thank you again for coming in with that. And so I'm going to read a couple of comments, and then Ms. Teresa, I'm going to get your thoughts as well. I know a lot of people say AJ on his way to being a top 3 tight end. I think Josh agreed with you, Ms. Teresa, that AJ should be ahead of DK on the list, but both are elite. So we're talking about camp. What is your most anticipated camp battle, position battle, Ms. Teresa?
Well, TD mentioned it. I want to watch the cornerbacks because, you've got Jackrabbit Jenkins as the veteran, but, that unit is the one where they got rid of Malcolm Butler, Adoree Jackson, Kenny Vaccaro as safety. And Desmond King was let go after they traded for him. So, there's all new faces in that group. So I want to see if, when does Caleb Farley start practicing with his team? Mike Vrabel told us that he was able to do some walkthrough stuff to help speed up his learning curve. But there's nothing like being out there, being cleared for action, and being in practice. And, so when that happens is going to be key as to whether or not he's got a chance to be available to start the season. Christian Fulton is the guy who's coming back. So, but he was limited last year by injuries as well. So, how much does he benefit from his first true offseason in the NFL? So who wins those spots? It sounds like, yes, they'd like maybe Christian Fulton to be at right cornerback, Caleb Farley there in the mix. You don't draft a guy in the first round without expecting and needing him to start this season. So, and then second for me is the right tackle spot. I'm kind of expecting Dylan Radins, if he can stay healthy throughout the preseason, I think he's going to have a chance to be pushing for that job sooner rather than later. And I mentioned Nate Davis earlier. Let's not forget, he was limited by injury most of the August of his rookie year, yet he was starting at right guard by very early in October. So if Radins can stay healthy, he's going to have a shot. And then, yes, kicker. Yes, I want to keep an eye on the backup quarterback spot, but, we remember the kicking woes and roller coaster of not just last year, but the year before when they, only completed 44.4% of their kicks. Think about it. Look at their record the last 2 years and then making it to the playoffs with their kicking game having the struggles that they've had. So if Hobble can come in there and win that job, and I saw somebody say, go sign Gostkowski. To me, I haven't talked to anyone about the Titans about this because I know they want to see one of these two guys try to win the job. But Stephen Gostkowski's got a place in Williamson County. He's a short drive away. Should they need to call the bat, grab the bat phone and throw on the bat signal for Gostkowski. So, but for salary purposes, they really need one of these young kids to win the job.
Absolutely. And kicker is definitely a big time camp battle that I even forgot to mention, which is one that is extremely important because we haven't seen either one of these kids kick like that. And Tucker McCann, I know some people have seen him in camp and things like that, and he has his struggles. And, Blake is a bit up and down from what I've heard on that, but you really got to see him in action to really know if he could be the kicker of this team. We're going to definitely see with that. But the one position I'm definitely looking forward to, besides the backup quarterback, because I think Deshaun Kaiser has a real shot to get that job as the backup quarterback, I got to say it's right tackle with you, Teresa. And the thing I would say is, I think this is Dylan Radunz's job to lose, in my honest opinion. I think this is Dylan Radunz's job to lose. That, I know Ken can definitely give information on Kendall Lamb with his time that he was in Houston that we know it is well documented. Ken Moore does not like Kendall Lamb at all and thought that is not good for the Tennessee Titans at all. We know Ty Sambrailo did an absolutely admirable job in place of Taylor Lewan until he got hurt on the left side, which I think a lot of us would say he's probably better suited to be on the right side. So a lot of people would say it's between Radunz and Lamb. I think it's between Radunz and Sambrailo, and I honestly think Radunz has a big-time edge over Sambrailo. Again, I think it's Radunz's job to lose. Now, if something happens with Taylor Lewan and he gets hurt again, then maybe perhaps, You know, you could move Dylan Ray Dunn to left side, or instead just keep him at right. You put Sam Brilo on the left side, and hey, we probably don't miss a beat. So right tackle is where I'm looking at the most. I definitely agree. The backup quarterback, again, I think Deshaun Kaiser could win the job. The last couple of receiver spots is what I'm looking at too, because you know, TD mentioned it about possibly Mason Kinsey being that fourth or fifth receiver. I mean, and Ken, I'm gonna get your thoughts. AJ, Julio, Josh, and I think Des Fitzpatrick are locks. Those 4 spots are not going to be taken. Plus, Des Fitzpatrick was drafted in the 4th round. The real battle is going to be for those last 2 spots. You got Charles Rogers, you got Racey McMath, you got Marcus Johnson, Chester Rogers, Fred Brown from the Broncos, Kaja Lipscomb, Cody Hollister, Nick Westbrook-Akina, Cam Batson, Mason Kinsey. You got 9 guys battling for 2 spots, because I don't see the Titans keeping more than 6 receivers. I mean, I think I've seen it once where they kept 7, but I think they're going to only keep 6. There's only 2 spots, 9 guys battling for it. And so I want to ask you, Ken, who are going to be those last 2 receivers, in your opinion, that you think could be at the end of the Titans roster?
Well, first of all, I'm not sure that Des Fitzpatrick is a lock. He could be a practice squad candidate depending on how he performs, not only at the wide receiver position, but you got to remember those last 2 or 3 spots, those guys also have to be able to play special teams at an elite level. So a lot will depend not only on how those guys do at the receiver position, but even more so on special teams, whether that's in the punt return game or the punt coverage team, the kickoff coverage teams. Those guys have to show the willingness, and that is a tough job. Guys don't want to do that job, right? So you have to find special guys that have that mentality that, hey, I'm going to go down and sacrifice my body to make this tackle, to make this block. So it's hard because you can't really get inside of a guy's heart. It's hard to say who's going to be those last few guys, but I would not put Des Fitzpatrick in with a Sharpie marker yet, that he's going to be that 4th receiver, because he's going to have to earn it. And being a 4th round pick, you don't come in like a 1st or a 2nd round pick where you're automatically going to make the squad. You got to fight for that squad. I think he has to fight, but he's going to have to show it in camp.
I can hear that. And that's why I think, and Mr. Reese, I'm going to get you now on this. That's why I think a guy like Racey McMath, maybe even a Mason Kinsey, they could have a legit shot because of what you just said. Racey McMath did a lot on special teams at LSU, maybe not so much as a receiver, but did a lot on special teams. Mason Kinsey, of course, we know that's Titan Upload. Mark, that is his guy. So I know he loved what TD had to say with Mason Kinsey. He may have a shot at that. But Ms. Teresa, what are your thoughts about the last couple of spots at wide receiver who could possibly make this team? Do you agree with Ken that Dez is not a lock?
Well, I definitely agree with Ken on the idea that those last couple spots, it's going to depend on the special teams contribution, without a doubt. And Racey McMath, you watch his film at LSU, not only is he returning punts and kicks, he's covering on kicks. And, you've seen him go down and take somebody down. And, that to me is what gives him an edge in trying to get that last wide receiver spot, because he can do so many things for you. And, and he kind of lives up to his name. He's fast. So I do kind of expect him to have a chance at that spot. But, how this shakes out, I liked what I saw out of Dez during the OTAs and the offseason program, but, they weren't doing tons beside, it was just tough to get a true gauge of things, because, that's the point in the season where we'll see so much more once we get into camp, and they're going through the drills, they're going through the, the team drills, and he's having to remember those routes, and guys have got to be running sharp. The one thing we heard so much over the offseason was how much they like Nick Westbrook-Akina. So I kind of think he's got a chance. But, some of these guys you mentioned, they've got some NFL experience. They brought in some guys who've been in this league for more than a moment. And to me, that's just trying to build that competition. I don't see John Robinson keeping Des Fitzpatrick. When it comes down to that final cut day on August 31st, going to 53, if he's got a guy, whether it's Westbrook Akina, Kinsey, Marcus Johnson, if it's Rogers, if it's one of those guys who's had the better camp, then yeah, at that point, I can see him cutting Des Fitzpatrick and then trying to get him back on the practice squad. Why? Again, I go back to the drafting or the trade for Julio Jones. That made it clear. This team, there's no loyalties because you had draft status. They say that every year, right? You've got to make the roster. That holds true this year more than any.
I agree. I definitely like that. And I will say, that is going to make it a very interesting camp. Something to definitely pay attention to is and like Ken said, you're going to have to fight to make that last on that roster. And I'm pretty sure all of us have seen Invincible with Mark Wahlberg. The Philadelphia Eagle coach said it. If you want to make this team, you better do it on special teams. That's your best way to make this roster. If you're, trying out or at the bottom, trying to make it, that's going to be your best way. And, and show it on scout team as well. When the first teams are going to pound on you, like you're their worst enemy. You got to show something. And if you do that, you have a shot. Again, I think, I thought Des Fitzpatrick could be a lot. I might end up being wrong on that one. So we are definitely going to see about that. And, TD mentioned the nickel situation. I think at the end of the year, what the Titans want, they want it where it's Fulton on one side, Farley on the other side. I think that's where they want to end it up. And then you sprinkle some Jackrabbit. I feel crazy calling him Jackrabbit sometimes. I got to get used to that.
Hey, he told us when we talked to him and, after they signed him, it's like some of us were calling him Janoris and he's like, I don't know who you're talking to. I'm Jackrabbit. So yeah, it feels a little weird, but that's what he wants.
Well, then Jackrabbit it is. Jackrabbit it is. I'm going to go with that. And I apologize to everybody. I haven't gotten to a lot of your comments. I am trying to show them as we go. Josh comes up with a question. Who do y'all think ends up being the kicker or the punt returner? As far as we're concerned, I think Darrington Evans definitely has a shot at being the kick returner, in my opinion. But I still think we still need a punt returner. So, Ms. Teresa, I'll start with you first. What are your thoughts, or what are you hearing as far as maybe the return position?
I think that's why they use that 7th rounder on Racey McMath. If you can return punts in the SEC, you've got a pretty, that should make it easier to make that transition and then step up to the NFL. Now that said, the Titans have been bad on special teams the last 2 years. And that's an area that, for all the talk about how they can make such a huge leap forward in improvement on defense, same goes for special teams. So, getting a guy who, we didn't see much of Darrington Evans last year. And, hopefully having a full offseason for their rookies will give a guy like McMath a chance to come out and earn that job. Problem is, it's really tough to really gauge and grade that guy until the preseason games. And this year we've only got 3. So, when he gets a chance, he's going to have to take it and run with it. Absolutely.
Ken, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. It's going to have to be one of those young receivers or Darrington Evans. I know Titan Upload, they talked about Mason Kinsey possibly being a return guy if he makes the team. So I think that's going to be a huge impact, as well as which one of those young guys has that experience and that Coach Vrabel can trust back there to make the correct decision. Because your punt return guy, he's almost as important as your field goal kicker, because a turnover in the special teams are huge momentum shifters in ball games. And we've seen the Titans in the last couple of years, as Teresa mentioned, they haven't been explosive on special teams. It's almost been like, just get back there and catch the ball, get 4 or 5 yards, and we'll let the offense take over from there. We haven't really looked for the huge. Go ahead.
Don't fumble. That's been probably.
I know that's right.
Number one.
Don't mess it up. Don't fumble the football. Right. Let the offense do what they do. So it depends on how much of a risk that we want to take back there in the special teams. You want somebody that's sure-handed, that's going to take care of the football, that knows when to call for a fair catch, when not to call for a fair catch, that's not going to let the ball bounce 5 yards in front of them and roll another 15 yards and flip field position. All those things are very, very critical in the return game.
Absolutely. And I mean, you know, we and obviously we see that, and I have seen some article where somebody says, which is crazy, that Brett Kern could be a cut candidate, which I know that's not going to happen. I mean, come on. Whoever wrote that is probably just trying to get some likes. I mean, Brett Kern's going to be the punter, but we saw what happens when some of your best weapons on special teams are not available. Hence the Colt game with FedEx guy trying to kick a punt and ends up being disastrous for us. And it was a backbreaker in a game we probably should have won in that particular situation. So we see last year a couple of games where special teams cost us some wins tremendously. But the kicking situation, I am going to be paying a lot more attention to than I thought I was in the beginning, because I want to see, is somebody going to be consistent and win that job and not blow some kicks? I mean, put them through the uprights. That's all it's got to be. Get it down, straight down Broadway. Get it straight down Fifth Avenue and Broadway. Put it right in the middle, and let's go and put some points on the board.
Yeah,
So,
and it's critically important, especially as TD mentioned, you have young guys coming into camp. All right, so it's a difference for a kicker if you're a young guy coming in, say, if you're going to Cincinnati or if you're going to Jacksonville, you're going to a team that doesn't have a lot of pressure, you can go in more relaxed. These guys, in my opinion, they're going to have a lot of pressure on them because you're coming into a battle for a Super Bowl contender, right? And we know the Titans play a lot of close ball games. We don't blow out a lot of people. We don't get blown out a lot. A lot of time it's a one-possession game. There's going to be 3 or 4 games a year that comes down to make or missing a field goal. Just like the NBA, they say it's a make or miss league. Field goal kicking is make or miss, and those guys are going to have a lot of pressure on them. So, as Teresa mentioned, you might get on that bat phone and call the old veteran Gotskowski and see if he can come back.
agreed.
Well, and let's not forget the biggest upgrade the Titans made to their special teams unit this offseason was when they signed 4-time Pro Bowler Morgan Cox, as a free agent from the Ravens. This is a guy who's been there, done that, went to the University of Tennessee. He's from Collierville. I mean, they brought in a guy. When Bo Brinkley just kind of declined and had his issues last season, they made it through the rest of the year, slapping things together, so to speak. Then they went out and they got a guy who knows how to do it. They understand how crucial that position is to helping both their punter and their kicker. So that should help that unit improve already. And then if they can just figure out the returners and who their kicker is, that should help them be in position to make some serious improvements.
Absolutely. And one other question before we go into our small medium forum that we're going to have for a few moments. An interesting question that was brought up by Philip Maddox. Another battle that could be happening in camp, a coaching battle of sorts. We know Shane Bowen is the defensive coordinator. He asks, is there such thing as a coaching battle? Because I think Shane Bowen is feeling a little stressed and looking over his shoulder as if he don't vastly improve the D, that Schwartz will take over. And we know that Jim Schwartz is a defensive as a assistant coach, basically to come in and kind of help Shane Bowen run a defense. So that is a interesting question. Is there a lot of pressure on Shane Bowen knowing he might be looking over his shoulder thinking, if I screw up, Jim Schwartz is just itching to take this defense over?
I think there's pressure on Shane Bowen just because of how bad this defense was last year. Now, you look at the fact that they changed out so many guys who started, by my count, at least 7 guys who started at least 3 games last year, gone in one form or fashion, whether it was Jadeveon Clowney not being brought back or the cuts in the secondary, et cetera. So, to me, his job is he's got to get better or his job's on the line anyway, right? It's the NFL, not for long. The thing I like about them bringing in Jim Schwartz, his defenses always get after the quarterback. Their sack totals are really high. They're up among the best in the NFL. That's the area that they struggled so much in last year. Now, hey, if this defense struggles, yes, Jim Schwartz is sitting right there. But the fact of the matter is, my gut is that he was brought in to be that outside the Vrabel tree kind of voice and give them that second opinion, different perspective, and help them get this defense getting quarterbacks on the ground better.
I agree. Ken, what do you think?
Well, I think it comes down a lot to the guys in the locker room, to be honest, because there has to be a clear chain of command that you go to if you're a player, right? If you're Rashad Evans, if you're Jayon Brown, if you're Jeffrey Simmons, if I'm having an issue or if I'm not understanding or if I'm not completing my assignments properly, am I going to Mike Vrabel? Am I going to Shane Bowen? Or am I going to Jim Schwartz? That has to be laid out at day one when they get to camp in 2 weeks by the head coach. This is our chain of command. Guys, you report to Shane Bowen. Bowen, if you're having some issues, then you go to Jim Schwartz to see what you can do better in your position. And then if all else fails, then you go to the head coach. But the players on the defensive side of the ball, they have to know the chain of command. It's just like in our jobs. You may have a manager, you may have an assistant manager, you may have your CEO or whatever. You have to know who the chain of command is so you keep that defensive locker room straight.
Absolutely. I definitely agree. You got to have the main voice to go to in these situations. I know first you go to your position coach, but then Shane Bowen's the defensive coordinator. So he has to be in charge, and he needs to take charge of that. And don't be a yes man. If you feel something if you feel, Vrabel might be telling you something, you kind of disagree with it, hey, stand on your ground. Stand on your ground, say, you know what, I appreciate the suggestion, but I really think we should do this. You're the defensive coordinator. You're in charge of the defense, because if this defense doesn't do well, the fans are going to come for Shane Bowen's head first, plain and simple. And they're just waiting to do that. I mean, they're sharpening their pitchforks. They're sharpening the pitchforks, and they're ready to storm Shane Bowen's office right now if he screws up, being like, hey, Bowen's got to go. Bowen sucks. Get him out of there. So Shane Bowen, it's on him, very much so. And last but not least, do you think Byard has a bounce back year this year?
I do. I don't know about you, Ken, but I do, because for this reason, it just feels like maybe he was trying to do too much last year. I know at one point this offseason, Mike Vrabel made a comment to, how do you play better? You can't do it with catchphrases. Last year that pass rush didn't give him any help, and my gut was that he was just maybe doing too much and, left him out of position sometimes. And that was not the Kevin Byard I've watched, not just in his career in the NFL, but back when he played at MTSU. So you watch him work on, the videos, I'm fully expecting a bounce back year.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think sometimes in sports, particularly at the defensive back position, sometimes some years the football finds you and sometimes it doesn't. And last year was just a situation the football did not find Kevin Byard. He was maybe a half a step slow. Maybe he was trying to overcompensate because Adoree Jackson was out most of the year. So maybe he was trying to overcompensate for Adoree being out. And then Christian Fulton goes out. So it was just so much turmoil in that secondary last season. I think Kevin Byard is fine. I did not get on him a lot last year. Like I know a lot of fans got on Kevin Byard last year because he didn't have the year that he had 2 or 3 years previously. But he's still one of the top 6 or 7 safeties in the NFL. Any other team in the league would love to have him. So I think Kevin Byard will be just fine.
I definitely agree with that. And so we're going to move on towards the end of the show. wanted to have a little something called a media forum for just a minute. And the reason why I wanted to say this is that a brief announcement. Miss Teresa knows about this. Ken knows about this. I told TD about this as well. I'm telling all of y'all, I've only told a few, a very important people that are close to me this. I've been blessed with an opportunity. I will be now working as a production assistant with Channel 13 News here in Memphis, the Fox affiliate here in Memphis. I will be doing a production. I start that next week. So I will be doing some production behind the scenes and everything, and doing some stuff with editing. So, we're doing this podcast, and, with everything with all of y'all, watching and supporting. Y'all helped me with this. And now I feel like I finally have a foot in the door, and now we can really make some things happen. This podcast, and I guarantee you, no matter what, this Titans and Truth podcast ain't going nowhere. I promise you that. I guarantee you that. So this podcast ain't going nowhere. I'm not going anywhere. As long as the Titans exist, which will be probably until the end of time, or even until when it's time for me to be with the Lord, I'm going to be bringing you the podcast. So I ain't going nowhere. So again, I'll be joining the Fox Channel 13 News family, and I'm thankful to them for this opportunity, and I'm also thankful to all of you for helping me get to where I am, and we gonna continue. So foot in the door, and now nowhere to go but up.
Hey, Chris, I will tell you, just like I told you when we texted about it, that's how I got my start, probably 25 years ago, as an assistant producer at a local station here in Houston, just learning how to write, learning how to edit, making sure that I could follow the reporters out in the field and see how they do their jobs. This will be an invaluable experience for you. Take every advantage of it. Just go in and be a sponge, man. Just listen and learn. You may have a couple of haters, and you just got to look past the haters, right? And you got to go to those that truly have your best benefit at heart. There'll be 2 or 3 people that you can truly trust. You just have to seek those people out. And if you need help with anything at all, I'm a phone call away, I'm a text away, and I'll be happy to help. Technology's changed a lot since I was doing it a long time ago, so I can't help you with the technical part. Miss Teresa can probably speak to that. The technical stuff has changed just a little bit since I was behind the scenes, so that's why I got in front of the camera, man. I didn't want to have to deal with all that video editing and all that good stuff, but man, right. It'll be a fun deal. Enjoy it and take every advantage of it.
Will do.
And just keep grinding. That's the thing. I was inducted into the Tennessee Sportswriters Hall of Fame last week, and it's the work. You just keep doing it. You do this because you love it, and you just keep doing it as well as you can and as hard as you can, and people will notice. It's that simple.
Well, I will definitely do that, and I thank everybody. I thank everybody for the love with that, and believe me when I tell you, the grind don't stop. It's just, the grind don't stop. It's going to accelerate a little bit more. So, I'm going to be, there are going to be some days I'm going to have to grind out some tough hours. And, I give credit to my right hand lady. She told me when I told her about it that, there are going to be some good days and some bad days, even if it's in a profession that you love, and, that you just have to, stay up and stay motivated, which I plan to be. And I thank my play sister, wherever she, is listening, my play sister, Cynthia, which I'm going to make sure I share this with her. She already knows. So she helped me get in on that, definitely have some allies in the studio. So that way I know who to go to and things like that. I'm definitely going to I'm probably going to have notepad and pen and notepad ready. And also, maybe have, my phone ready to either record or hit some, write it down on my phone. So that way I keep it. So, I think this is not only going to, help me in my career in broadcasting. I think it's also going to help me with this podcast to create even better. And that's what I'm going to continue to do, everybody, is to give you that content just like this with great people like Teresa, like Ken, like TD, like Titan Upload, Mr. Titan, Tennessee Titan Weekly, and a bunch of others that I did not name. So I thank all of y'all for sticking with me. Y'all helped me with this, and I can't say thank you enough. And so, Ms. Teresa, I wanted to ask you, I know we discussed this before, but for the people that maybe don't know, what motivated you to get into the profession that you're in, and now you're a Hall of Famer? How did that motivate you to get in with that? I know you went to the University of Tennessee.
Always loved sports, but being a girl in the 70s, I didn't see women doing sports as sports writers. I saw Phyllis George on the CBS pregame show back in the day. And so I went to college to be a journalist. I studied Russian. I was going to be a foreign correspondent. And then it's like, there was a kidnapping of an AP correspondent, Terry Anderson, in the 80s. And it's like, no, I'm not going to do that. So I went to work in a daily paper in East Tennessee, 2.5 years. Got lucky to get on with AP, which is where I wanted to get to. I've been there now. It'll be 32 years at the end of November. And I had a boss that gave me a chance. I was working nights and weekends for 2.5 years, taking calls all over the state, writing football and basketball game stories, going to the state basketball, baseball tournament, and just anything my boss has asked me to do, I went and did it. And then I was given a chance to be the state sports editor in June '92. And even then, Tennessee didn't have a ton of sports. I was based in Nashville. I had Vanderbilt, PGA tournament, a tennis tournament. And I was still spending days in our office writing news. When the Oilers moved to town in '97, that's when I went full-time sports. And trust me, I am so blessed that I got pro teams come to Tennessee. And, again, just do the work. It's go to practices, go to do everything you can to just soak up as much knowledge as you can. And, because players, coaches, when they see that and if you don't know, ask. It's amazing how people want to help you understand when they see you work and trying to get better at it.
Definitely. And Ken, let me get your thoughts. I know you've been with, you do games for ESPN 3 and things like that. Let me get your thoughts in getting into the field as you have.
Yeah, man. Kind of like Teresa, being a minority, right? Just kind of like being a woman in sports. You didn't see that a lot back in the 70s. I think Teresa and I probably watched the same show. She was watching Phyllis George. I was watching Irv Cross and Jane Kennedy, right?
Yes.
Irv Cross and Jane Kennedy and Brent Musburger back in the 70s, man. That was the best pregame show ever. But really, when I knew I wanted to be a broadcaster and pretty much being an analyst, is listening to Howard Cosell. I loved Howard Cosell as a kid. I just loved his brashness. I love how he wasn't afraid to say anything. Now, he say some stuff that got him in trouble because he went too far a couple of times. But he was my guy that I listened to growing up. And I knew I wanted to be a football player, and I played football in college. But at the same time, my dream was, if I can't play the game, I want to broadcast the game, right? Yeah. And I did everything that I could, in being a production assistant and an assistant producer and things like that to get into the news business, and then going to be a sports reporter in Victoria, Texas, which is like the lowest market in the country at the time. It was like the 200 market. Then I went to Lufkin, Texas, which was a great step up. And then I had an opportunity back in 2000 when the Astros moved into Enron Field at the time, which is now Minute Maid, to go be their baseball dugout reporter and post-game producer. And that was the big break for me, being able to come back home, work for a Major League Baseball team. And baseball wasn't my favorite sport, but I got an opportunity to do it and work in that professional environment, and then being able to get into the football broadcasting, which is my passion and my love, and being able to do that now for the past probably 6 or 7 years with ESPN 3. It's been a blessing. It hasn't stopped though. That's not the end goal. The end goal is to keep moving up, and to try to throw on that CBS Gym Nance jacket and be the little kid from the hood that made it all the way. Where you don't have to be a professional football athlete to become a broadcaster, because you see every guy you see in the booth, they're a former athlete, right? Mm-hmm. So my goal is to break that trend. You don't have to be a former NFL or a former NBA athlete to make it all the way to the professional rank. So that's my end goal right now.
I agree. I definitely agree. And before, we get ready to get out of here, I'll give y'all a little quick story on me. I went to the University of Memphis, and before that, I thought about broadcasting. I loved sports pretty much my whole life. Even though I did start off as a Dallas Cowboy fan. Don't hurt me, everybody. That was only because I was a boy at the age of 7. And at that time, the Cowboys was the only team on TV. And, my dad was a big 49ers fan. I told some people this story. But, after he passed when I was 12, saw the Oilers, saw McNair, saw Eddie George. I'm thinking, okay, this team from Houston, I like this team right now. I'm okay with it. They come to Memphis, and I'm thinking, oh, man, could Memphis have a pro team? I'm like, I could get behind this. And then, they went to Nashville. I still stick with them. And so went to the University of Memphis. I was a journalism major. And they had this stupid test I had to take, and I only got it's like an English proficiency test, and it had it had a bunch of trick questions. So I couldn't get past the test, so I had to change my major, which I changed it to communications, and got in, and met a great mentor by the name of Dr. McDowell, and he helped me get my start and figure out what I wanted to do. Did some radio work with the Memphis channel in Memphis. It was WMR 90 U92 was a jazz station, but they did the football games, and I started doing the basketball games with a couple of guys. I did some color commentary for that. I enjoyed doing that. Was able to really get a taste of it, got to see the game against the Longhorns. I want to say, I cannot remember the year. I want to say it was maybe 2000. I want to say it was like 2005. And the Tigers were like number 1 in the country. And Texas, I believe, was number 3 or something like that. They were highly ranked. And that game and the game against Gonzaga with Adam Morrison, 2 of probably the best games I ever watched in my life that I got to enjoy. And I was there broadcasting, doing color commentary. And so got to do that. And then, did some production stuff with some other stations here in Memphis and also in Nashville. And so now, after some time, and now I finally got my foot back in the door. And I'm I'm thankful to Fox 13 for giving me a chance, and I'm going to take it and run with it. And like y'all said, I'm going to grind hard, grind fast, and soak up as much as I can, and, take advantage of any opportunity that comes ahead. People might think this is crazy. What I'm about to say is like, if they say jump, I'm sure going to say how high. I'm going to do that because I'm in my element. I'm gonna take advantage of any and every opportunity I can, and we're gonna make this thing work. So I thank y'all for what y'all are telling me, and thank y'all for helping me, and I'm gonna continue to need you. That much is a fact. So, that is something that I will always treasure. So I thank y'all for sharing that with me with that. So as we get ready to wrap up the show, I know we had some technical. Ken, if you can get back on, I understand with that. Oh, there we go. And so another thing that happened this week that I wanted to kind of touch on a little bit, Ms. Teresa, I know you could definitely give some information on this. Congrats to now former Nashville Predator great and goalie, the one and only Pekka Rinne, as he announced his retirement from the NHL yesterday. I mean, drafted since 2004, played 15 years, played 15, 16 years with the Predators, has a Vezina trophy as the top goalie in the NHL, helped us to a Stanley Cup appearance and a Western Conference championship. I mean, had over 360 wins in his career and a save percentage of just under 92% for his career, over 60 shutouts, including his last shutout to end the regular season against the Carolina Hurricanes. So, Miss Teresa, the floor is yours. What were your thoughts about Pekka Rinne's retirement and just the great player that he was?
Easily one of my top 5 favorite pro athletes to cover in my career. And that list includes Mike Conley when he was with the Grizzlies, and Steve McNair and Eddie George. But with Pekka Rinne, I mean, he's the face of this franchise. 15 seasons. He was drafted, retired by the same franchise. That's been a rarity in the Nashville Predators history. Not only did he win a Vezina, he was a runner-up 2 other times. And he was 4th in the Hart voting for most valuable player in the NHL one year. So this guy has just done he'll be the first jersey that they retire. And they plan to celebrate him this whole next year. My guess is they retire his jersey. I think the perfect time would be the stadium game at Nissan Stadium on February 26th. They'll have their biggest crowd, and you can certainly make that a centerpiece of that game. But that man, I mean, let's face it, he won their first playoff series. He, as you mentioned, of his other accomplishments, and just one of the nicest guys. You could mess up a question to him, and I did many times, and he'd give you the answer you still needed, which to me is the best quality you can have in a pro. And then you add all the stuff he did on the ice. I mean, come on, perfect epitome of what they needed.
I absolutely loved watching Pekka Rinne in between the pipes at goal. I mean, and I'll tell anybody, as a young African-American kid growing up in Memphis, hockey wasn't really a sport that a lot of people would ever pay attention to here in Memphis. I mean, we did have the Memphis River Kings, and I believe they were like a minor league affiliate. I can't remember of what team they were. But I mean, that was really all they had. And I didn't really know a lot about hockey, really until I got to Nashville when I was living there, and really kind of learned it and really embraced it. Got to go. My wife and I went to our first game, and I want to say it was against the Dallas Stars. I want to say it was our first game that we ever went to back in 2016. And I mean, ever since then, I was growing. I was growing. I was loving the game. Pekka Rinne was one of those guys that he wowed you. And when people say he was one of the best goalies in the league, he really was. I mean, he's up there with Gary Price and Vasilevsky and, some of those other great goalies, that have done some work. Now, he's going to be up there with Osgood and Dominic Hasek and Martin Brodeur. Probably not, but I mean, he'll be well recognized. And I mean, any accolades that he gets this upcoming year will be much, much well deserved. I enjoy watching him play. And I think because of him, UC Soros, I think, is going to end up being a terrific goalie for this team as time goes on, because of Pekka Rinne, in my honest opinion on that. Ken, I don't know if I still got you. I know hockey's a little bit different down there in Texas with the Stars. I didn't know if you are familiar with some of the Predators, if you wanted to chime in a little bit.
I have no clue, bro. I followed y'all a couple of years last year. I think y'all made it to the Stanley Cup finals or close to the finals. I think that was the only year I kind of watched. But yeah, definitely out of my element.
I definitely understand that, but I mean, hey, I'm growing in hockey too, so learn the rules and stuff like that, and I hope I might be able to make that stadium game when they play Tampa Bay. I think that's going to be a lot of fun and very interesting indeed. But everybody, that's pretty much the show for tonight. We're gonna go ahead and wrap it up. First off, Miss Teresa, where can they find any of your amazing content and information?
apnews.com is our website, and you can just go under sports, or you can localize and ask for the, to add the Tennessee state line. You can also download the AP mobile app. It's free, and you can also you can get that Tennessee state wire, and you'll get all my Titans Tennessee. I cover the state of Tennessee. You'll get it all, and that's probably the easiest way. Follow me on Twitter too at Teresa M. Walker.
Absolutely, and again, y'all. Miss Teresa isn't just covering like national sports. She's not just covering the Titans and the Predators and Vandy and Tennessee. She's also right here. She also covers right here in my area when it comes to Memphis Tiger football, basketball with their fall camp about to prepare. And, I'm excited about Memphis football, especially with Mississippi State coming to town next, in a couple of months. So I'm excited about that. And also what Penny's going to do with this class. I'm ready for him to give me that national championship that he promised us. So definitely look at her work and everything with that. Ken, where can they find you once again, my friend?
Yeah, here on YouTube, you can find me at Kmore Sports. Usually during the season, I'll have a Titans the day after the show, the day after their game. I will also have coming up probably in the next week and a half before training camp, we'll do an AFC preview show. So you guys go hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell at Kmore Sports, so that way you can get the updates of my next show. And then also on Twitter at Kmore Sports, and on Instagram at Kenmore Sports. So you can find me at those social media platforms.
Absolutely. And also, everybody, make sure y'all spread the word to other fans that are friends of yours that may be fans of other teams. I'm going to be getting the Truth League report back going as well. And as training camp goes on, definitely going to be previewing, probably going to be doing a couple of shows, recordings, previewing different divisions as far as the AFC South, the AFC North, the NFC North, the NFC South, and all the other divisions. So definitely spread the word to your to all your friends that are football fans of other teams. I'm going to be trying to pull that back up, and I'm also going to be trying to slowly bring in some fantasy thoughts as well. So get prepared for that. Got more in store. The grind ain't going to stop, y'all. So I definitely thank everybody for tuning in to Titans and Truth. Thank you, Miss Teresa. Thank you, Ken. And thanks, a big shout out, thanks to my guy TD for coming on with us. And y'all know what it is that we all have to just do nothing else. We have to tighten up, because honestly, that's all we know how to do. Good night, y'all. Everybody, holla at you. Thank you again. I will see y'all soon.